Hi everybody, it's me, Willow, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm here with another fun video for all of you guys to enjoy. We're breaking down the final episode of Euphoria Season 3, the season finale, and in my opinion, the series finale, but that will be discussed later if that is actually the truth or if Sam Levinson is going to continue to push forward with his series Euphoria. But oh boy, we have a lot to discuss about episode 8 of season 3 of Euphoria because it was a jam packed episode at an hour and a half long. And oh boy, am I in deep shock after what I just witnessed on my TV screen. But before we get into the episode, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the post notification button so you don't miss out on any of my content going forward. I cover movies, TV, pop culture content. I also am covering festivals and awards predictions all year long. So if you're subscribed and you have post notifications on, you won't miss out on any of that coverage. I'm also going to be covering season 3 of Interview with the Vampire, which is Vampire Lestat. I'm so excited that's starting up next week. We also have season 3 of The House of the Dragon coming very, very soon, and I'm hopefully going to be covering that as well. We have so many movies coming up, so it's going to be busy here on this channel. So make sure you have the subscribe button and post notifications turned on. Thank you so much. I'm also on all the social media platforms. You can find me at Willow D Steele. Give me love over on all the platforms. Thank you so much for all the support. I'm so grateful for all of your guys' love and interactions with all of my videos. I'm so grateful. And let's dive into this episode of Euphoria. I don't think I can push it off any longer because, oh boy, was this a wild episode. This is just going to be straight spoilers. So you are being warned because, oh my goodness, Rue is dead. I honestly thought she was going to make it out. I know a lot of people had been theorizing that she wasn't going to make it out. I know people in my comments had been theorizing in the last couple of weeks that they thought Rue was going to pass away. And honestly, I just really thought that they were going to give her an out with how they were explaining that this was like a hopeful season finale and just with it being Zendaya and I feel like the character has so much meat like I know that she was a drug addict and there was always that possibility looming over her, but I don't know. I just always thought that she was going to make it out. And I thought she was kind of like a symbol for Sam. But I also think it was interesting how Sam kind of talked about how when he was in the midst of his addiction, the deepest and darkest parts of it, fentanyl wasn't around. And he says that if he was still in his deep, dark pits of active addiction today, he would probably not be around anymore due to fentanyl being so heavily, you know, used in drugs nowadays as a tool for cutting. And it's just really tragic that these drugs are not clean whatsoever with fentanyl being mixed in them. And I think parts of this episode really does work. And I think having this message of warning people about fentanyls and the dangers of it and testing your drugs and being wary about, unknown narcotics or drugs being given to you. I think that is very important, bringing home season 1, bringing home season 2 of this story, and how this series is about addiction and the dangers and horrors that can come with that, and the realities of life, and how not everybody is able to be, revived from an OD. And I think, especially with Rue having an OD at the beginning of the series, coming out of the hospital after that, and her family suffering the repercussions of her having this overdose, Gia finding her, her mother having to parent a traumatized child, and then a child who's in addiction, and then herself, having to suffer all of this. I thought, bringing that full circle with Rue passing away from the overdose, reaching out to her mother in the darkness on Allie's couch, being reunited with her father, and then her mother being called by Allie the next day to hear the news. It was shock. Like, I was in shock. I really was. Like, I didn't know how to react. Like, I was kind of like laughing, like, oh my goodness, is this actually happening right now?
What do you mean?
this season. Like, are are you kidding me? I was just in complete utter shock that they went that route. And I think it was kind of smart though, because Maddie let slip about the DEA and Rue last week, and and Alamo, seeming so proud of her. She was able to get all the information back about the girls from Lori's safe. She did everything that he wanted her to do, but he knew that she was a snitch, knew that she couldn't be trusted. So he decided to, you know, murder her, poison her with Percocets that were cut with fentanyl and let her overdose. So, really, really tragic, but I do think that was a little bit of brilliant writing. I do think there were some great cinematic moments in this episode overall. Like, I do love the opening scene with the Nazis at Lori's being built up and how we see the ambulance, being loaded up with all the drugs and them taking Kitty and the other girl back across the border. And we see this Coke. I was like, why is Coca Cola being product placement so much? And then we realized that it was because they ended up switching the ambulances out, and we could only see that because of the Coke not being there anymore. And I thought that was pretty brilliant because I didn't realize. I was just like, okay, what's with this Coke product placement? Why did Big Eddie drink the Coke? Like, I didn't really put two and two together that it was a different ambulance. I don't know if other people thought of that before the reveal with Bishop came forth later in the episode, but I thought that was pretty smart because this entire time I was like, oh my goodness. And then, Wayne realized that it was a setup because he took the laxative drugs instead of a real drugs, and him and Faye were able to get out. But then they leave everybody else to be captured by the DA. Like, I thought that was a great scene, very cinematic, of the DA and the SWAT coming down the dirt road with the ambulance and Faye and Wayne going out on the horse. Like, I thought that was very well done with the blocking, the choreo, very cinematically done, very much like a Western. I would even say kind of giving you a little bit of a film level of cinematic, like the scale it was at. Like, I thought it was a really interesting opening to the episode, but does it really play into the rest of the storyline? Not really. It's just trying to close off, that Nazi Lori storyline with her ending up hanging herself off the top of the building because she doesn't want to go to jail. But they can't even arrest her because there's no evidence to arrest them on except for the guns, I guess, which I'm assuming they might have, a firearm license for. But yeah, interesting how they tried to wrap it up that way, but then the DEA can't even like technically arrest them because there was no probable cause to, attack them because they thought the drugs were going to be in the ambulance, but they ended up being switched out, and Alamo ended up having the drugs in the right ambulance with Bishop. So I liked the opening. I thought it was very cinematic, especially with like Mershaw taking out one of the cousins, like with the sniper rifle, and Rue being lassoed. Like, I thought that was all really cool, cinematic, but did it really add anything to the episode and the storyline overall? No. The only thing it really closed up was the fact that Alamo really did want the IDs and that he was smarter than Lori and was able to get the full amount of the drugs rather than doing the 50-50 split that Lori mentioned later in the episode. And Lori kills herself. So, yeah, like, it kind of lowers the stakes for that half of the family. And Faye and Wayne, they get away, they like carjack this family or something, and we don't even get to see them. Like, I guess they're just out in the wild. Who knows what's going to happen to them? But I don't know. Like, I thought it was fun because we were waiting for this big buildup of the DEA, but it didn't really give me that resolution that I was hoping for. And it also took about maybe like 30 minutes of the storyline that I feel like we could have given to characters that I desperately wanted to know more about, like Cassie and Maddie. They're in the diner in shock after what happened to Nate, and then how they're in this predicament with Alamo. Maddie's just saying, what do I do? They silently embrace, and Cassie's like, we'll figure it out together. And I felt like that was really like the mixed of that was really the gist of Maddie and Cassie's development. We do get a little bit of them later, but they are prominent characters in this series, and I feel like we hardly get anything of them in the season finale. Don't get me started on Jules. Like, we get one scene of Jules that is maybe like 3 minutes long. She's staring at a blank canvas in Ellis's apartment, so she's still there acting as Ellis's doll. She paints this portrait of Rue. She's obviously grieving the loss of Rue and how she left everything with her, slapping her, basically saying she wanted nothing to do with her. Like, obviously, she has a lot of guilt and regret. And I think Hunter Schafer's performance was very brilliant, but they gave her 0 lines. Like, I just felt like this is such a disgrace to the character of Jules. Like, no development. They just leave her locked in this apartment with no ambition, no future, just her looking on the past, the regret, the guilt. Yeah, very, very unsatisfied with what happened to Jules. Everything with the Nazis and that shootout at the beginning with the DEA, I felt like really could have put towards anything of Jules or even Cassie or Maddie, developing these characters, giving them a little bit more satisfying closure. Like, I'm very, very upset. Like, it's obvious that Hunter Schafer really didn't give that much time on set. She only had a little bit of time to give, and they decided to shoot basically all of her scenes in the apartment and then maybe a couple at that wedding with who, how the timelines with all the schedules worked of who she could film with. But yeah, very, very disappointed. I feel like they could have maybe given her like overhead narration or something, replacing Rue, or given her a monologue or something. Like, I felt like her episode, like her standalone episode right after season 1 and between season 2, is the strongest episode of Euphoria. Just like so well done. And I just feel like none of that energy or momentum came through with this closure for Jules. So I'm just so devastated. I am glad that she's painting at least. She still has some sort of creative bug in her, but she like walks to Ellis. She paints her canvas. Ellis puts his hand on her shoulder, and she looks at the painting of what her life used to be and then walks away to Ellis. I just, yeah, super unsatisfied with that. Very, very upset. And I was very upset with what they did with Cassie and Maddie as well. We get to see Cassie and Lexi talk. Also, not really satisfied with Lexi's storyline either. We don't get to see much of her and Sharon Stone. Like, none of Sharon Stone, none of LA Knight's, like, what's going on with her career. Like, we just get her and Cassie has offered her a job. They're going to transform her and Nate's home into this like influencer house where they're going to house all these OnlyFans girls and charge them board, but help them create like storylines and help them promote their content and build this whole like network of OnlyFans girls. And they're asking Lexi to be like the storyteller, to be their writer. And I thought their scene was very beautiful. Like, I started to cry when Lexi was saying how she had so much grief and regret about how she left things with Rue, and how for 10 years she was just worried that this horrific moment was going to happen to her again. Because I love that Cassie was able to bring up their dad, and how, even though the last moment she had with her dad, he said he loved her, it was still never easy for her to think about what's going on with him. Is he dead? Is he alive? Like, where is he? Like, he's just out there in the world. And I thought that was a really beautiful moment. Again, bringing us back to season 1 and just that character of who Cassie was and the relationship between her and Lexi, and how, when you are in a family of addicts, like, often, the children suffer and they react completely differently. I haven't been in a family of I don't know. I guess I have been in a family of addicts, but not to like that extent. More like extended family addicts, but I do have like that lineage, and just not like super like pretty like toxic household growing up, and me and my siblings, I just have like one sibling. We honestly like don't get along very well, and I think it's because of that like trauma that we grew up in. We just reacted very differently, so we have very different coping mechanisms, and we kind of just like separated ourselves because I think of, we remind ourselves of that trauma that we grew up in. And I think that's what, Cassie and Lexi are going through. Like they aren't very close, and they don't have very similar outlooks of life, and they're going down completely different paths. But I do think that was very genuine advice that Cassie was able to give to Lexi and tell her that it's not her fault what happened to their dad. It was not what was at fault of what happened to Rue, and that she needs to give herself some grace and just move forward and look towards the future of her life. And I felt like that scene was very emotional, and I got a little sad and I cried a little bit, but I really liked that moment. And I do think it's really sad that that is our last note on Cassie, and just seeing her in this huge house like all alone, just being surrounded by all this commodification of the dildos and the lingerie, and just seeing her be completely glorified from season 1 through season 2 to here, just being this commodification and feeling like she has no power, no control, missing Nate, the thought that she would have this love, this beautiful life, picture perfect, and now she's in this dollhouse and she's completely alone, just having this ring light of a halo effect on her, and this pan out of this darkness, like her being completely isolated and just so unsatisfied with what she has in life, I thought was so brutal. And for being somebody who always wanted, hope for Cassie, and even though she made so many poor decisions, I think it was definitely driven by, the treatment that she had, this glorification, this sexualization that she had at such a young age. Nate, this abuse that she went through, this love bombing, this control, and then she went through it again with Nas being this debt that she had to owe, and the abuse, and seeing Nate, basically murdered, suffocated alive. It's brutal, and now she's stuck in this cycle. And yeah, it makes me sad that Cassie's stuck like this. I feel like they're definitely trying to leave an opening. If they do a season 4, I'm assuming Sydney Sweeney would probably come back. Like, if all the cast, I would think she would come back, but still makes me sad. I also thought how Maddie, I hate, like, I was hoping that she would have this control, and we get to see her having to bring money to Alamo, offer sexual favors, and Alamo basically saying that, oh, like, I want to leave this life of crime behind because I see that pussy still controls me. Like, the whole narrative of his flashback with his mother, I just was never satisfied with that. I just thought that was kind of dumb. Him basically trying to control Maddie into being, wife material for him, having all these babies with her, basically leaving her no choice. But then we have Ali come in, lock them all up, basically go from dusk till dawn on them, just no vampires there. And he is coming for revenge for Rue, and how Rue was killed by the fentanyl that Alamo gave her. He knew the system that she was in. He kept begging her to just leave and that he would try and protect her. And it resulted in her death because she never wanted to step away. She thought she was just away from freedom with the DEA, maybe being able to arrest them, but there was no evidence for the DEA to come and arrest them on. Alamo was able to outsmart them, and I thought the ending was really fun. I do thought it was great that Ali was trying to come and get revenge for Rue and come down on them and blow off Mershaw's balls was crazy. And then they have this really traditional shootout of a duel, this Western moment of Alamo coming through the little swing doors in the club, and Kitty rolling the champagne bottle across the bar, waiting for it to drop so they can duel. But then Alamo, drawing beforehand, trying to shoot Ali before the bottle drops, and then realizing that Bishop sets him up, had taken all the bullets out, so Ali can shoot and kill Alamo. And I thought it was pretty epic. Like I loved the blood splatter of that altered shotgun, really brutal. Alamo definitely deserves to go down with everything that he's done to these girls, leading them off to be either like sex trafficked or murdered, or altering them and basically just completely abusing them in the system and locking them in like kitty and doing horrific things to Maddie, all this stuff in the name of money and game and pussy and all this ridiculousness. So I'm glad that we are able to have the last laugh and Ali was able to take down Rue. And I do think some people were saying, it's not necessarily happy ending for Rue, but it's kind of trying to give some relief and some closure to Ali and to tell him that he doesn't have to bear this burden of making sure all these next generation is okay, giving them advice, trying to, save them from this life of addiction because he can't hold all of that to himself, it's too hard. Like, you can't save everybody, unfortunately. So I think it's beautiful that he was able to try and get some justice for Rue in the best way that he could by taking out Alamo and be able to save Maddie and get her out of that predicament. And luckily Bishop, he has a little bit of a kinder soul. I do think it was a little like out of the blue. Like it did seem like he connected with Maddie like a couple episodes ago, but I feel like they could have done a little bit more buildup of their relationship and his connection, or just him not wanting to go down Alamo's path anymore, just because I thought it was just a little out of character that he decided so out of left field to, not support Alamo anymore and take all the bullets out. Like, yeah, I did think that was a little out of left field. But there's so much stuff in this episode that like just doesn't make sense. It's just kind of filler. Like I just feel like there's like so many different TV shows within this season finale. Like I feel like the stuff with Cassie and Lexi is stuff from season one. I feel like the Ruse stuff is a little bit reminiscent of season one, but the whole Fez like hallucination overdose scene is kind of reminiscent of season two with her little big chase cop scene. I and then Ali is completely different. The Western duel with Alamo, completely different. The shootout at the beginning with the DEA coming in, completely different. Like, just so many different TV shows in one season finale. I'm just like, I'm not faulting Sam for the writing at this point, like, because I just know that the idol the rest of the season, like, he's just fallen off. He doesn't have people to correct him, to be like, hey, maybe we should, oh, that's a great idea, but maybe we should just like develop this a little bit, or maybe like it's the Duffer Brothers all over again, like that documentary of the making of the final season of Stranger Things, and how they had people around them and they were like, okay, well, maybe we should give them a little bit more satisfying closure, because I think the audience will be a little underwhelmed and unhappy if we don't, close these storylines off. And then the Duffer Brothers are just like, but will they? But will they? And I feel like this is exactly what happened with Sam. He just doesn't have anybody like that even suggesting maybe we should fix things up. He just has complete yes men and nobody in the writer's room. It's completely him writing and creating and like directing it all. Like, I get it, Sam. I get it. But to your fault, like, I feel like this is just like a completely out of left field episode. Um, there are some emotional points, and I feel like I am able to get some sort of satisfaction. And even though I am in complete shock about what happened to Rue, I am able to try and feel a little bit of closure with it. And I do think, even though it is completely shocking, and I did think she was going to make it out, it's not completely unexpected that maybe she would have died in the season finale. And I do think it is kind of like, I don't know, a PSA and bringing awareness to fentanyl and the dangers of this drug use, and how addiction is completely dangerous and it's life threatening, and it really heavily affects the people around you. And like, even Ali saying that he started drinking again after losing Rue, and just all of this burden that he felt and wanting to help these young people, and him realizing that he can't hold that anymore, and that if he wants to keep himself sane and to worry about his own addiction, that he has to worry about himself at the end of the day, and he can't worry about people who are in active addiction. He can't save everybody, and that there's good and there's bad, and that he needs to find some other way to serve. And he does that by taking out Alamo and that sort of kingpin and that system. And somehow, with Moses, they're able to lead the strippers out of the club over to Cassie and Maddie, and maybe they'll find some sanctuary over there. Like, again, like, not very great writing, not great conclusion from our characters, in my opinion. I do like Ali, going to the homestead from the beginning of the episode and being able to get a little bit of closure and try and, say that Rue is this beautiful person, that she deserved all this life, and that he hopes that she's resting peacefully. But I do think the whole "May God bless us" at the end with Rue giving us that prayer was a little off. Like, I don't understand. Like, I don't mind the religious context, and I do think the religious theme throughout the season was thoughtful, and I do think it was interesting to see Rue, kind of lend this way towards God and find, some peace and hope and some sort of salvation and forgiveness and redemption that the Bible offers. I think that was very strong, and her not getting that salvation is just like heartbreaking, and seeing her as Moses not being able to get to the promised land, very, very poetic in a sense, but I don't know if it's like completely strong, like with the writing. I don't love the whole superimposing of her at the end of the table, with the family. I just feel like it's a little too on the nose, just with the whole trend of conservatism and the evangelical rise of religion. Like, I don't. Yeah, was it completely necessary? I don't know. Like, I do think it feels a little out of character for the show. Like, I know that there was a lot of religious context in this season with the Bible and Rue looking for that salvation, but just to leave us off on that note, I just think the overall crux of the whole series, I think it was a little weird. I don't know if you guys also thought if it was a little off-putting, but I would love to hear you guys' overall thoughts of episode 8, the final episode of season 3, the possible final episode of Euphoria overall. I am kind of seeing this as a conclusion of this series. I don't think there'll be a season 4, but they are kind of like leaving Easter eggs that they could be open to a season 4. So, yeah, I'd love to hear all your guys' thoughts. Overall, I would think this is kind of like mediocre. I don't think it was like as worse as some of the episodes in this season that we like started off with, but I don't think this is anywhere near like season 1 or even like season 2 level. I would think maybe this is a 3 out of 5 stars. Um, but again, like, just very all over the place. I feel like not a lot of closure for our main characters like Jules, Cassie, Maddie. I just am very unsatisfied with what happened to them, and yeah, I feel like this episode was just so crazy, and I can't believe it's over. So let me know what you guys think about Euphoria, the final episode down below in the comments. I'd love to hear all your guys' thoughts, get a conversation going. If you enjoyed my review, make sure you leave a thumbs up, and also hit the subscribe button and the post notification button so you don't miss out on any of my future content. I'm also on Instagram, TikTok, the Awards Expert app, Letterboxd, and Serialized, all at Willow DCL. So give me a follow on those social media platforms. I'm so grateful for all of your interaction and engagement. It really helps to push me out into the algorithm so I can meet other like-minded folks to help join my cinema loving community. I'm so grateful for all of your guys' support. I will be posting a lot more content, TV and movie related, coming out soon. Hopefully I'll have a Backrooms review coming out soon because I really want to see that, but I'm just like so pushed on time, so I don't even know when I'm going to be able to see it, but hopefully soon. I'm also going to be covering the Vampire Lestat coming up soon and the House of the Dragon, so make sure you are following for all that amazing content coming out soon. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. Until my next video, make sure to keep being lost in cinema. Bye!